Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to the stream. Before we get into it, just make sure if you're watching live, please do smash like on the video. Please do click the subscribe button. Really appreciate it. On the road to 200 subscribers, so each new one counts. So please do that, guys. And yeah, Chelsea versus Manchester United this weekend. Super Sunday, 4:30 kickoff. Tuchel versus Michael Carrick. Something I didn't think I'd be saying. And Joining me today to discuss this is Theo from the Shadowland podcast. Mate, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it every time you give up your time to come on. So yeah, looking forward to this one. Tuchel's presser today, obviously not great injury news. We've talked about the Ben Chilwell injury before. We had a little bit more clarity on that with the fact that it's a partial ACL, and they're also going to try and treat it in the next 6 weeks in the hope that it might not require surgery and could heal subsequently on its own, and they're obviously going to take a decision in 6 weeks. So it's slightly positive news now. I mean, just a quick reaction to that news, Theo. A little bit better than perhaps we expect him.
Yeah, it is slightly better. It gives us 6 weeks to really, hope that it's just partial and not serious, not more serious than that. I'm glad that Tuchel hasn't come out straight away and said that it's a straight ACL and he'll be out for the season. So it does give us a bit of hope. But other than that, all the other injuries that he spoke about do make sense. I don't think we were expecting Kante to start against Manchester United or even feature. Same with Chilwell, and then the Lukaku and Kovacic ones as well. I don't think we expected that either, especially that Lukaku wasn't given any time against Juventus in midweek. So kind of expected, I suppose, and it does give us a bit of hope, but it still remains a blow for us.
And just in terms of those injuries, obviously we've coped pretty well so far with players being out injured, but we seem to be picking up quite a few at the moment. Obviously, Tuchel confirming today, as you just touched on, no Kovacic this weekend. And obviously, N'Golo Kante is a major doubt. I think he's virtually out. Tuchel saying it's going to be probably a week or so. So that's kind of two big misses in midfield. Obviously, there was no update on Kai Havertz. I don't know if you've seen anything to suggest about his fitness. Obviously didn't play against Juventus, but then I didn't come across anything in the presser to give anything to shed any light on his fitness. You come across anything at all?
I mean, it's going to be speculation that seeing that he didn't feature against Juventus and his name wasn't mentioned, then maybe that possibly means that he's in the squad. I would think, he was given a week to recover from that Leicester game, and he wasn't mentioned once. I'm presuming that he's fit, and obviously, if Lukaku doesn't start, then having Havertz as a false nine or up front would be, we may need him. Should that be an option for us?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm just going to bring the Premier League table up now, just so we can have a look at it going into the state of play. Obviously, great reading for us. Top of the table by 3 points from Manchester City, 4 wins and a draw in our last 5, and in contrast, Manchester United down in 8th place, only 1 win in their last 5 with 4 defeats there as well. Really struggling. Obviously, new management team. Well, Michael Carrick in temporary charge, and Ralf Rangnick is very close to being appointed as interim for the next 6 months. So they are kind of dealing with that situation. Theo, how do you see this game going? Because, realistically, it should be a fairly straightforward Chelsea win, but football's never that simple. And this is going to be quite tough because this is a United. Obviously, they've got some great players. Look, they're not playing well at all. But I mean, do you think there could be some sort of potential new manager bounce? We've got to be right on it, haven't we?
Yeah, as you said, football's never straightforward. On paper, you'd expect Chelsea to win, given their form. You saw that table on the screen that United only have 1 win in their last 5, and the rest are 4 defeats. So I'm expecting Chelsea to win, but I do think that United will give us a bit more problems than maybe some people think. As you said, they've got that squad. When we were reviewing our predictions last summer, in the summer when they bought in Ronaldo and they bought in all these players, Varane, I had them down as favourites, I thought. But then as the season went on, I thought maybe their manager's letting them down. But there could be this kind of renaissance now that they've gotten rid of Solskjaer, and it's almost like a fresh start for the players, for maybe the fans, for the management. And we saw it with us when we got rid of Mourinho. We had a couple good performances under Hiddink in that that December period. So I think there could be a bit of revival. They'll be a bit more confident after beating Villarreal away from home as well, even though their performance wasn't too good. And they've got also the promise now and the hope of Ralf Rangnick coming in, so that will give them also a bit of a revival and a bit of confidence. But I am still really, given how we played against Leicester and Juventus, if we kind of replicate that performance and that form, then I think it will be 3 points to Chelsea.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I mean, I can't really see United. I mean, they'll probably improve. The performance levels might improve slightly, but as you said, if we play anywhere near as good as we have in our last couple of games, we should be able to comfortably have too much. So, I mean, this is like the one game of the season which I just do not want to lose. Like, it's always terrible losing to Man United, particularly like with the fact that they're just in complete disarray, and it would be quite typical, wouldn't it? For them to maybe turn up and potentially end up winning this game. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you wouldn't completely rule it out, even though everything's kind of in our favour. I'm just obviously touching it, Ralph Rangnick. What do you think about that? Obviously not been officially confirmed yet, but by all means, agreement in principle has been reached with Lokomotiv Moscow. He's obviously got a very good reputation within the game, credited with the likes of kind of mentoring the likes of Jurgen Klopp, obviously Thomas Tuchel as well. Very well respected, but more so off the pitch and kind of in a consultancy's director sort of role, not so much in a dugout. I don't think he's really been in a dugout very much at all in the last 10 years, apart from perhaps a solitary season at Leipzig. So do you think there could be a bit of rust there? But what do you think about that appointment overall?
I mean, I'll be completely honest, I haven't watched much Bundesliga, so I don't know too much about him. But just from my reading, I know that Klopp's come out and said that the Premier League team should be quite scared because he's a very good, football manager. He knows the sport very well. And as you said, he was almost like a teacher to Tuchel and to Klopp. So there's that side that says that he's going to do a very good job and have an impact at United. And I also read something recently that someone at Lokomotiv Moscow has said that he doesn't care about football whatsoever. He's more of a businessman. As you said, he's more into like the consultancy, the business side of football. So, if he has that approach to Man United and just sees it more of kind of, a way to make money or a kind of a, he wants to more approach it in a business format rather than actually, focusing on the football, then maybe that could have an impact on United's performances as well. But I think he is a very smart person. If he gets the praise from Tuchel and from Klopp, then, he must be doing something right. And I think if I also remember, he was one of the front runners before we appointed Tuchel for the Chelsea job when we'd sacked Frank Lampard. So I think he's a man in demand as well. And I think if it's for the next 6 months, I think United are getting someone that's a lot more experienced and stronger than Ole Solskjaer as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think he's also been given permission to bring some of his own trusted assistants in. So I think finally, the likes of maybe Michael Carrick and McKenna as well, who've come in for a lot of criticism, pretty poor coaches, really, if we're being honest about it. Looks like perhaps they could be potentially moved on or put somewhere else. So they're obviously giving him kind of a slightly free rein. I don't think he would have taken that role without the guarantee of having that consultancy for 2 years post the interim manager. But yeah, it's going to be an improvement. It's someone that knows the game so well, someone that's tactically switched on, will demand a lot from the players. You'll see a very organised Manchester United side, which is perhaps not what we've seen a lot of recently. But for Chelsea, it's important that we keep that momentum going really as well, because we're heading into the notorious Christmas period, where as Chelsea fans, it goes one of two ways. I mean, how important is it that we win this game on Sunday and just keep the ball rolling?
It's really important. I think there's no better time to be playing United because we just said how good of a football brain Rangnick is, and I think once he does get appointed, I think United will get back in the groove and start picking up the points. So right now, when they almost they still got in Michael Carrick and then managerless, I suppose, then it's a good period to play them, and it will set the tone for that December period as well. We've got a couple tricky away fixtures. I think to Wolves. I think Villa, on Boxing Day, and they're winnable fixtures, but at the same time, this period was the beginning of the end for Frank Lampard last season. So we'll want to kind of put that behind us. And I do feel like if we come out of this Christmas period still top of the league, then I can see us in May being champions. But should we allow Liverpool and City to close that gap, then we'll make things a lot harder for ourselves. But if we can get a win on Sunday and end November with 3 points, an extra 3 points, then that'll be brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. You almost feel like this time of year is make or break for Chelsea managers in terms of what the league season's going to be like. We've seen it in the past. You touched on this is where it all went wrong for Frank Lampard. But if we get through this Christmas period and we're still top, or we're a couple of points off the top, you're going to be feeling pretty confident for the remaining stretch. And I look at the Liverpool game 2nd of January. As kind of a key marker. If we're still top then or within touching distance, then I think it's going to be positive for us. But Yeah, it's. I mean, how much of a plus for us then, Theo? Do you think that it's not having Harry Maguire and Rafa Varane at the heart of that United defence? I know Maguire's been really poor this season, but he is their captain and he does normally play when he's fit. So do you think that's a big plus for us to have no Varane and no Maguire, no that first choice centre-back pairing not there? I mean, I've read potential murmurings that United may look to adopt a back three in this game as well, possibly.
Yeah, I think it's a big positive for us. I know Maguire's come under a lot of criticism this season for his, his performances at Manchester United, but I still think he's a quality centre-back. And often when he does play Chelsea, he performs. And Varane, we know, he's a World Cup winner. He's won the Champions League 3 times or 4 times, even with Real Madrid. He's experienced. So I think not having them is obviously a big positive for Chelsea. And that will force them into playing, I think, Bailly, Lindelof. And if it's a back three, maybe it will be like a Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Tejas, I don't know, who on the wing backs. I mean, you do look at that back, their back three or back four, and it is relatively poor, I want to say, compared to, the standard that Chelsea plays, especially the, Bailly and Lindelof haven't probably played a lot of football, the two of them together. I don't know who the choice after that is. Is it Phil Jones, who hasn't even featured this season? So I think they're very short on quality centre-backs, Manchester United, and it is a big positive for us.
I mean, yeah, a back three, you're looking at maybe, I know Scott McTominay plays in a back three for Scotland. He could potentially drop in there, but I'm not sure if it's smart or not from United to try and match our system up. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But I mean, obviously the obvious threats, United, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, it's great to see him back in the Premier League, of course. I mean, I'm a massive fan of his. It's going to be really important, isn't it, that we stay switched on, stay alert, because he can be out of a game for 89 minutes and that one moment and he's there and he'll probably score. So how much of a threat do you think he's going to pose to us?
Exactly. Literally, I can only echo what you've just said. He'll stay maybe quiet for 80 minutes, 85 minutes, and then pop up at the end of the game and score 1 or 2 goals to, snatch a point or the 3 points for Manchester United. So I think it's really important that we keep him out the game. Similarly to what we did with Vardy at Leicester, he hardly, was able to touch the ball. Say maybe with Morata in the Juventus game, if we manage to, keep Ronaldo out of the game, which will be difficult, a lot harder than Vardy and Morata. But if we manage to do that, I think we'll keep him quiet. But, he does have a goal in him. That's what does scare me. And I do admire his game as well and his mentality. So I think if there's one player we should be worried about, is him, despite his age, despite, maybe him getting older and not performing like he used to at Real Madrid. He's still a quality player. So we have to be careful of him.
I mean, he does always score. Whenever you look at United playing, you pretty much know that if they've scored a goal, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be him. So he's going to be a big threat. But I mean, in that kind of attacking end of the pitch, I mean, who else do you see as a threat? I mean, Jadon Sancho has not been great since he's come in. Obviously, he's a little bit better against Watford, got his first goal against Villarreal. Could be a potential turning point. But, I mean, he's another dangerous player as well. If he kind of turns up and does a little bit, he's another threat for them.
Definitely. I mean, we were linked to Sancho for a reason. He was quality back at Dortmund. And I do think that that goal against Villarreal in the Champions League will almost like unlock or trigger something in his game now. And I think he'll start performing like, the Sancho we're used to watching. Other threats, I think Greenwood. We know how good Greenwood is. I'm not sure if he's fully fit yet. I don't think he's featured as much recently, but he's definitely a player to watch for United. And I do think if they're going to be dangerous on the attack, then it will be Greenwood, starting those chances. And also, obviously, Rashford. We all watch England. We all know how good Rashford's been in the last couple of years for Manchester United. So, and also creativity-wise, Fernandes. I think Fernandes from set pieces, from corners. So we have to definitely be careful of him. But again, if we kind of, if whoever plays as the 3 centre-backs for us, if they do their job and they man-mark their players and they almost, keep these players out of the game, then we've got every reason to be confident, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is where playing a back 3 is quite beneficial. Going up, it looks like, well, we don't know what the team for United is going to be, but it's most likely they're going to go with Ronaldo through the middle with Sancho or Greenwood or Sancho, Rashford, either side in a 3. When it's very isolating when you're the one up front against basically 1 against 2 centre-backs or 1 against 3 centre-backs. So that's where it's going to be quite beneficial. I think Ronaldo could be in for a tough afternoon if we perform defensively like we should. But again, as I said as at the top of the show, you would expect a Chelsea win, but it really is going to be it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot tougher than many people might expect. Because United, can you believe that we didn't beat an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed United side? I mean, that is criminal, isn't it?
I think we beat them only in the FA Cup semi-finals.
Yeah,
other than that, in the Premier League. Other than that, in the Premier League, it was just defeats, draws. Yeah, it was really poor.
It was really poor. So we do need to put that right. And to be honest, we haven't got the best record against Man United, have we, at all? I remember Frank's first game in charge, we got battered 4-0 there. We had a couple of 0-0 draws in and around there. We had a few draws at the Bridge. They've beaten us in the League Cup there as well. Why do you think we haven't got that good a record against United in the last 4 or 5 seasons?
I think it's almost every time we play United, we get a bit too confident. I remember last season when we played them at Old Trafford, it was back in October when we were playing some really good football, and we went into that game too confident. And then I remember Mendy bailed us out on so many occasions, and we ended up snatching a point in a 0-0 draw. But I think it's just because you look at this United team, maybe by the defense, they've got a very good midfield and attacking options. We can't forget that. But I think it's hard to say exactly why we haven't really performed against them, but maybe Solskjaer spotted something in this Chelsea side that was a weakness, but I think now that we've got Tuchel, because I think last time we played United was in February. I think only maybe Tuchel's second game or third game in charge, but now that he's got the full team flowing like how he wants it, he brought in this defensive stability, he's installed this system, then this will be probably a real we'll get to see the real Chelsea now against United, and whether United will be able to cope.
And I think this is another test of our kind of title credentials. We've come through quite a few tests. I mean, Leicester away, I think, was a statement victory. I know they've not been in the best of form, but if we can win this, that kind of lays down another marker, doesn't it? I know it's not the best Manchester United side, but there's still some world-class footballers there, and it's still Man United at the end of the day. So how much of a big statement do you think that sends to the rest of the league if we can win this game and continue to keep that gap at the top?
It's a huge statement. I mean, right now people are saying that no team can, almost defeat Chelsea, especially at home, especially given our defensive record. I think we've only conceded, 5 goals all season, something like that. Yeah. So it would be a big statement. And as you said, regardless of Manchester United's, recent form, their history and the stature of the club is huge. So to get a win on paper against this Manchester United side, which I want to say is in transition at the moment, given the change of manager, would be a big statement, and obviously a big, push towards our title charge.
Yeah, no, 100%. We're now going to obviously move into the predicted lineup. So it's not what we think Thomas Tuchel's going to go with. It's what myself and Theo would kind of like to see. And let's get into it. So let's just bring up the lineup. Right then, mate. Let's start with the goalkeeper. I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it? That doesn't really need a lot of conversation. That will obviously be Edouard Mendy in between the sticks. Obviously, David De Gea has been playing very well, obviously, at the opposite end of the pitch. Do you think there's a lot of difference in quality between the two keepers at the moment?
I do think so. I do think Mendy's the better keeper. I do think De Gea's, despite all the saves he pulls off, he's got a mistake in him. He does have a mistake in him. And even in that Watford game, he'd saved 2 penalties, but he was beaten quite easily at his near post a few times. So I do think he's got a few weaknesses, which Mendy doesn't really show. And in terms of, full kind of consistency and the full package, I think Mendy's a lot better, especially given the last season or two. So I'd say Mendy's clear of De Gea at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. I honestly can't remember Mendy making a mistake in his Chelsea career. The only one I can think of is away at Everton last year, we lost at Goodison, where he gave away the penalty. Other than that, I can't think of a mistake that he's made or errors that he's made that have cost us goals or anything like that. He's been nothing short of superb, really. So, I mean, yeah, obviously another big day for him in the sticks. Going to have to be bang at it as he always is. But moving into the back three, this is quite difficult. I mean, we saw in the week the back three was unchanged from Leicester. Theo, are you expecting the same back three to remain in place with Thiago Silva, Rudiger, and Chalobah, or do we think Christensen could come back in? What would you like to see there?
I think, given just how well we performed away to Leicester and at home to Juventus, I'd stick with the same back three that played in both those games. It is a bit harsh on Christensen because he hasn't set a foot wrong this season. And he does, he's fresh now from the international break. He hasn't featured in the last week. He hasn't played any football recently, so he'll have plenty more fitness than and energy than the other back three. But then again, why change something that's worked so well, especially in the last couple of weeks? And I think as well, Chalobah, he's been superb, and he seems to be learning so much off Thiago Silva. And the more games he plays alongside him, he only gets better. So I think I would stick with that same back three that played against Leicester and Juventus, but I would not be surprised as well if maybe Christensen slots in instead of Chalobah, just for a bit more experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Rudiger and Thiago Silva are, if they're fit, they basically play in this back three now. I think they're so important to the back line. Chalobah, again, has had 2 fantastic games against Leicester and Juve, so he definitely deserves to keep his starting place, and I would start him. But I agree with you. I don't think if one of them is going to be rotated out, it's most likely to be Chalobah with probably Christensen coming in. But yeah, I mean, that's the back three that I would like to see. It seems to be performing pretty well at the moment, so I don't think we can have too many complaints there. And Thiago Silva just keeps defying his age. I mean, can we expect another outstanding performance from him on Sunday? What do you reckon?
I think so. He's aging like a fine wine, like we've said, and he's not showing any signs of his age. And I think if there's a player that you'd want maybe with his experience and the amount of games he's played at the highest level to man Mark Ronaldo out of this game, it will be Thiago Silva. So he's that player as well. No matter the opponent, you trust him. You trust him as well. So I think it's the perfect game for him.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's going to be so important. And then perhaps he might not have the pace to keep up with Ronaldo, but he makes up for that lack of pace with unbelievable positional play, and his reading of the game is literally second to none. The only thing I'm disappointed is we never got to see Thiago Silva play alongside John Terry, because that would have been an unbelievable partnership. But we're lucky to have him here now. I've already put in the right wing back. I don't think it needs much explanation. Rhys James has been probably the best full right wing back in the world this year, definitely the best right back in the league at the moment. And what can we expect from him, obviously, on Sunday? I mean, let's hope he can continue his good form, but he's going to have a bit of work to do defensively, perhaps whether Ronaldo drifts out to that side, whether it's Sancho, whether it's Greenwood. So he's going to have to be on it as well defensively, because there's kind of pacey threat in behind down that right-hand side as well.
Yeah, Rhys James, first name on the team sheet at the moment. What can we expect from him? I want to say goals. I want to say assists. I want to say creativity, because that's what he's providing. He will have a bit of a difficult game. I mean, it'll be more of a challenge for him, having Ronaldo and all those United wingers, up against him. But should he drift forwards, this is what's brilliant about this, this formation. A player like Chalobah, a player like Silva will be there to cover for him until he gets back. So I'm not too worried, and I want to see him, venture up the pitch and, try to, score a goal or, put in an assist, which we know he's capable of. I'll be confident that even, a Silva, Chalobah, Rudiger, or even a Jorginho, because Jorginho likes to sit back, will be there to cover for him. But I think, I'm running out of compliments with Rhys James at the moment, but he's only getting better and better each game, which is ridiculous to say given his recent performances.
Yeah, no, he's definitely the first name on the team sheet, probably our standout performer this season, and we should be looking ahead to another great performance on Sunday. And he's going to be so important going forward as well, because he really is a weapon in that final third. His delivery is fantastic, and his finishing is second to none as well when he finds himself up in the opposition box also. So yeah, I think we can look forward to another Rhys James masterclass on the weekend. Moving on to the left-hand side, this would be a shoo-in, but unfortunately it's not. Theo, for you, obviously options Aspie or Alonso. I think it's fairly safe to presume that he's not going to put Sal Niguez in at left wing back for this game. He probably needs a lesser game to experiment with that if he's going to do it. Personally, I'd probably go with Alonso, but I mean, what do you reckon? It's quite a hard call. Alonso or Aspie for you?
I'd have to agree. I think Alonso. The only reason that Alonso lost his place in the team was just for how good Chilwell was performing and playing. But that first half of the season, September maybe to mid-October, Alonso was fantastic, and goals and assists, he can provide those just like Chilwell. And I feel like it makes more sense to play Alonso. He loves left wing back, his position, whereas Azpilicueta, I think he's more of I'd rather see him in that back three rather than the wing. He doesn't maybe have the pace or the legs to play that position. And if he does play, I'd rather see him on the right side rather than the left, because he's got a brilliant right foot.
Yeah, I
But
was
yeah,
going
I
to say
think
it makes it quite predictable as well. If Aspie was to play on the
yeah,
left, you know what he's going to do every time. Every time he's just going to cut in and play
exactly,
and go
exactly.
onto that right hand side. Obviously, we've seen him play left back in a back four under Jose Mourinho very successfully, but obviously playing left wing back in this system is kind of totally different to that. So, I mean, Aspie's obviously a better defender than Alonso is, but Alonso's definitely, for me, got the legs and he's more dangerous in that final third through delivery and potential goal threat, as well as a good set piece taker. So, yeah, I think we're pretty safe to presume that Alonso is probably going to play, and it's the one that we think is the best choice really for this game.
Agree. Yeah.
Moving on to midfield then. To be honest, mate, we haven't really got very many options. No Kovacic, no Kante. It would seem unlikely that Saul Niguez will start. So, I mean, how big an opportunity is this for Ruben Loftus-Cheek? I think we've said a number of times, well, I certainly have, that the next stage in his development was to be trusted to start in big games and influence them. Well, this weekend looks like a perfect opportunity for him to influence a big game and show what he's all about. So you would expect him to slot into one of those midfield positions?
Definitely. I think his when he came on for Kante and against Juventus, he gave us every reason to have confidence in him and want him to play these type of big games. And I think this is the perfect test if he's able to play and perform to the level that we expect him to do in a game like this. In the run of games that we have in December, I'm sure that we'll be able to trust him in that midfield position. I personally think he's more of an attacking midfielder, but that's why I think the other player that we're going to choose to go alongside him in Jorginho will give him that freedom to go up the pitch, drive forward, take on defenders, take on midfielders. And honestly, Ruben Loftus-Cheek against maybe a Fred or that type of player, I think there's only one winner when it comes to the physical battles between the two of them. So I think it's the perfect game for him to make that statement and prove to the manager that he deserves to play these games.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, how much of a miss do you feel Kante is for this game? Because if he was fit, we presume he would have played. Do you think not having Kante in that midfield two for this game is a big blow?
It is a bit of a blow. I mean, we know what Kante can provide. He is almost irreplaceable. No one can do what Kante does, which is win the ball back, intercept it, and also more recently drive up the pitch and score goals or provide assists. But I did see a bit of that when Ruben Loftus-Cheek came on against Juventus. I think he dispossessed Rabiot and Locatelli a few times, which reminded me a bit of like Kante. I don't want to make the comparison between the two because they're two very different players. But it is a blow, but I'm also, as I said, I'm confident that for this game, Loftus-Cheek can do the job.
Yeah, no, 100%. And obviously, Jorginho is going to play in alongside him. It'd be very, very shocking if Saul Niguez were to start. I think that's highly unlikely. Do you think, how do you like this midfield two as a pair? Do you think Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek complements each other quite nicely in that double pivot?
Yeah, I think one of them is that player that will set the tempo in Jorginho. He's not the quickest, he's not the biggest, but he does what Jorginho does best, and that's why he's been nominated for the Ballon d'Or, and he's perfect for this Tuchel system, just like how he was perfect for Mancini's system at the Euros. Whereas Loftus-Cheek is a lot more, physical brute maybe that will take on defenders, take on midfielders, and also maybe be more likely to provide a goal or an assist like we saw against Juventus with the silky bit of football to set the ball on the plate for Hudson-Odoi. So I think they do exactly like you said. They complement each other quite well, and I think it's the first time maybe other than that Juventus second half where we see the two of them together, which will be quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing those two alongside. I think it's a perfect complement, really. Jorginho, who dictates the tempo of the game, and Loftus-Cheek, who can do both things. He's very good breaking forward from midfield, and he's also got the physicality to help out in a slightly deeper role as well. And this is where it gets interesting, Phil, isn't it? This front three, we've got so many options up there. I mean, one person who I'm going to pencil in that I think definitely deserves to start and should start is Callum Hudson-Odoi on that left-hand side. Again, another great performance in the week against Juventus, and he's really taken this opportunity and grasped it with both hands. And I think he started 8 games in a row now. This potentially could be his 9th in a row. Is he a shoo-in to start on that left-hand side for you?
100%. I think we spoke about this when we did the Juventus player reviews, that there's no reason to drop Hudson-Odoi at the moment. He's playing, he's enjoying his football. He's playing like the Hudson-Odoi that we know we wanted to keep and not let go to Bayern Munich. And the managers, he's repaying confidence in that the managers, showed towards him. I completely agree. I think the other two players that we're going to choose in that front three will be a lot trickier because they're all kind of performing, but not to the level that Hudson-Odoi's performed in those last 8 games, particularly against Leicester and against Juventus. So he's definitely the front runner to play in those front three.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else he can produce, because he really has pushed on. He's finally kind of showing that potential that everyone knew he always had, and the reason why Bayern Munich were looking at buying him for those many millions that they were looking to bid. We're finally starting to see that, and I think he can improve quite a lot from here as well. So yeah, it's really exciting to see. The other two positions difficult. Obviously, Tuchel was saying that it's highly unlikely that Lukaku starts this weekend. I think we probably have to believe him on that. I feel that if he was going to play this weekend from the off, he would have featured off the bench against Juventus. So that to me suggests that he's not going to start. We saw Timo Werner get about 20 odd minutes and score a goal. Do you feel there's any possibility that he might start?
Timo Werner, is that player? I think there's a possibility. As you said, I think if Lukaku was to start or feature, he would have at least got maybe 15, 20 minutes against Juventus. But, Werner got, I think, 10 or 15, which is a sign that maybe Tuchel wants to introduce him back into this team again on Sunday. And I do think, what's so good about Werner, as we saw in the Champions League final, he creates space for other players. His pace, takes players out of the game. So I think we had a debate with my other podcast team earlier today about who should start as the false nine. Should it be Werner or should it be Pulisic? I said Werner and they both said Pulisic. But I think I'd rather go with Werner just for his pace and his ability to take on defenders.
I've got to be honest, I didn't think Pulisic was that great in that false nine against Juventus. He wasn't terrible, but he was the least effective of the front three on that night. I don't really know if it suits him. I think he's much better on that left-hand side, definitely that left-hand side, not so much the right-hand side, but obviously Callum, for me, is clear on that left-hand side at the moment with the consistency of performance level. I would agree. I think Timo Werner probably will go from the off, but then obviously we don't know about Kai Havertz. If Kai Havertz is fit, then I think he plays in that false nine position ahead of Timo Werner at the moment for me. But obviously we don't know if he's fit or not. I'm tempted to... It's a bit of a gamble, but obviously, if Havertz is fit, would you prefer to see Havertz up there?
I think so, just for his aerial ability. I think, in set pieces, we want someone maybe like Havertz who can pop up with a goal. Realistically, Werner doesn't score many headers, even though he has scored a few, I suppose. But if Havertz is fully fit, I'd have Havertz in that number 9 position.
Yeah, given the fact that nothing was said about Havertz and no questions were asked about him in the presser, I feel that he probably is fit, and if he's fit, I think he should start this game. So I'll go slight roll of the dice, but I think we both probably like to see him start ahead of Werner if that was the option. But this right-hand side's quite difficult now, isn't it? You've got Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech, or Mason Mount, and it's mad to think that Mason Mount not so long ago was an absolute definite on the Chelsea team sheet. At the moment, obviously, he's been struggling with form a little bit this season, getting back to full fitness after the issues he's had. He's not a shoo-in in this game. Hakim Ziyech has played really well in recent weeks. I think it's 4 goal contributions in his last 4 games. He was really good against Juventus. I personally feel that he probably deserves to keep his place in the lineup. I think he's a confidence player. And if he's playing well, then we just need to keep playing him. Because if he's playing well and then gets dropped, that could deflate his confidence. Do you feel that he deserves to stay in the lineup?
I'd have to agree. If you're putting this lineup together based on form and based on merit, I think Ziyech deserves to start. And we have to remember that we've got an extremely busy month of fixtures. We play Watford on Wednesday, so there'll be chances for other players. But for this particular game against United, I think you should pick the lineup on form and merit. And if that's the case, then I think Ziyech deserves to start simply for his 90 minutes against Juventus, but also his cameo and his assist against Leicester. So I'd go with Ziyech on that right-hand side.
Do we feel that Mason Mount is not going to feature from the off in this game? Obviously, when Mount doesn't play, the press is not quite as good. He's very good at pressing from the front. Ziyech is also good at that press. Obviously, not quite as good as Mount is, but in terms of actual goal contributions, either through scoring or assists, Mount has not been as good as the other players this season, has he?
No, that's true. I don't think apart from that game against Norwich, he hasn't scored in any other game. And I do think Mount does a lot other than, goals and assists. He almost plays as a third midfielder at times. But yeah, I think it's hard to replicate that form that he put in those sort of knockout game, that March onwards period last season, or since Tuchel took over in January. But there's a lot more competition. I think it's very healthy competition for him at the same time. I think, having this Ziyech in form, Hudson-Odoi in form, Pulisic back to fitness, I think he'll bring the best out of Mount again. So I think start Ziyech against United, bring Mount on maybe in the second half, and maybe start Mount against Watford at Vicarage Road on Wednesday.
I'd have to agree. That's the front three that I'd like to see. Obviously, we all know that Mason Mount is a fantastic footballer and he's one of our best players, but you've got to be fair. And on current form, he probably doesn't deserve to be in the lineup from the start at the moment. As harsh as that sounds, that's just kind of the reality of the situation we're in at Chelsea. And I also feel that Christian Pulisic is probably, for this game, it's going to be better from an impact sub from the bench. Against perhaps a tiring defence as such. I wouldn't be surprised if the guys that we've not included do end up starting. You just never know with Tuchel, particularly given how many options you've got in that final third of the pitch. But I think that this is the best to start with what we've got available. Do you expect Lukaku to feature at all in this game? Do you think he'd get minutes from the bench, or do you think it's very much dependent on how the game's going and we're more likely to see him against Watford?
I think it completely depends on how the game goes. I think if it's a very narrow lead, or maybe we're still 0-0, maybe you'd rather bring up someone like Pulisic on, Mount on, Werner on, if we go with this starting 11. If we're winning comfortably, maybe a 2 or 3-0, then I'd definitely play Lukaku, give him 20 minutes, to refine his fitness, and then hopefully start him at Vicarage Road on Wednesday. Or on the contrary, maybe Tuchel's seen something in training that proves that, Lukaku is game fit to a certain extent and can feature if we need to find a goal as an impact substitute. But I think Pulisic, as you just mentioned, he's the ultimate impact substitute, and he comes with bags of energy when he's introduced off the bench, like we saw against Leicester. So I think that's the more sensible option if we're needing a goal or two.
Looking at that on paper, obviously I quite like the look of that, of course, because we've picked it. But that looks pretty good, and that's definitely more than enough to win. But then obviously I wouldn't be surprised if we saw not a completely different front three. I think he will pick Callum, but I wouldn't be surprised if Havertz and Ziyech didn't feature from the off. Tuchel does like to rotate, etc. So I wouldn't be surprised to see slightly different there. But I think the back three, the wing backs and the midfield is pretty set in stone. Just to round off then, Theo, what are you thinking score prediction wise?
I think, as I said, if we play anywhere near to the level that we played at the King Power and at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday, I think we'll score goals, especially against a weak Manchester United defence. So I think we'll win 3-1. I think United will score a goal and we won't keep our clean sheet, simply because, just go back to what we said about Ronaldo being that elite player with elite mentality, and they do have those players who can score goals. Also, De Beek, which we didn't mention, who has almost got a point to prove with the new manager coming in. But yeah, I'm going to stick with 3-1.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously we know we're so solid defensively, but you cannot keep a clean sheet every single game. It just doesn't happen. You are going to let goals in here and there, and I feel that this could be a game where we may well let one in. But yeah, I feel confident that we've definitely got more than enough to score a few goals. That defence is very, very shaky. They haven't got their two best centre-backs, so you think that would be a massive advantage for us. I'm going to go with I think it'll be slightly closer. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. Obviously, Simon here saying that he thinks it's going to be 3-0. I'm very happy if it was 3-0, but I think it'll be a little bit closer than a lot of people may feel. But yeah, a 2-1 win for me, and hopefully we can, keep marching on. And obviously got Watford on Thursday. We need to keep that momentum rolling. This is the really crucial period now to show that we are going to be there for the duration of the season, as we touched upon. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining in. Thanks for getting involved in the comments. If you've watched live, please do smash like on the video. As I said, please do subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. And if you're watching it back, obviously hope you enjoy it. And obviously do those things as well. Theo, thanks so much for your time as always, mate. Guys, make sure you check out Theo's podcast at From the Shed End. I'll link it in the description below. And let's hope for a Chelsea win on Sunday. And we'll catch you in the player ratings and match review afterwards. Cheers, guys.